All
Whoa.
right. Thanks, Craig.
That's interesting. It talked to us.
Gonna talk to us. That'll be the last time it talks to us, though.
It's that little HAL 5000D.
Exactly. I wonder if we're going to be able to talk like this or not. I have you on speaker. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I totally can.
No issues. I mean, you're on speaker on my end. I hear you, not through my headset, which I'd hope to hear.
I mean, it's every so often it cuts out for like a split second, but I mean, that's sort of the same with, just talking on the phone too. So I think it's okay.
Okay. I heard just recently that there's always a lag. Like back in the day when we had hard lines connected to each other, at the phone, you were pretty much talking to each other back and forth like a natural conversation.
Right.
But cell phones, there is a significant amount of lag, enough so where if you're talking to somebody, you'll get kind of frustrated, talking immediately after you, and maybe it's not related to what you just said. And this is worse. Like Hangout, I used to talk on Hangouts, and I would try to jump in. By the time I jumped in, it was like a good second or two after I actually jumped in to match that stuff up. So it's like the natural rhythm of a conversation is massively being adjusted.
Right.
These ways of communicating.
It is interesting. When we were doing our D&D campaign, I don't know exactly like what the setting is or if it's just like an automatic lag, but like, so we were trying to do a map, and whenever our DM would talk about like, okay, 30 feet in front of you, there's this thing, but by the time it showed up on the map, like we'd already moved on. So we just gave up on the map entirely because we were also trying to draw on the map on the computer at the same time. It was kind of a mess. So that part didn't really work out.
I've done the online game playing also, and I did not pay attention well enough. I would doodle. I that's all I do.
Yeah.
In gaming sessions, and I just lost the thread of that thing. I would have to ask the guy to repeat himself. They got frustrated. I got frustrated. I just never did it again.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? You didn't enjoy it.
I loved it, actually. It was really fun. It just took, it took a little getting used to. It took us a while to get the voice set up. It took us a while to like kind of get the rhythm, because we were pretty much all in different places. Me and my friend Vicky, who were both playing, we lived close to each other, so I was at her house, so we were together, but everyone else is in a different place. Like we had one person in Florida, one person might have been in Canada, I don't really remember. So like that took a little setting up and getting used to, and kind of getting everyone's rhythm since you're not face to face. But it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I want to do it again.
I want to play face to face with people. I really miss it. I'm going to try something. Cancel a setting using. What happens now? Oh, we're good. Okay, that works. I think.
Cool.
Do I hear you in my ear? Oh, perfect. Excellent. All right, now
your
I'm
voice
a little
definitely changed too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Excellent. All right, I'm going to start kicking clothes into a pile. I'm not tethered to my computer, so I can walk around, and you'll be able to hear the mic. Right, you'll be able to hear the microphone dragging across my clothing. So you didn't go to Comic-Con. I talked to the author that you recommended.
KM, yes.
Yeah, KM. She was very nice to have an hour conversation with me. I tried to hook up with her at Comic-Con, but man, that place gets crazy.
Yeah.
It gets very unenjoyable.
So you didn't enjoy yourself there?
At Comic-Con?
Oh, that's a shame. I'm so sorry.
It's just way too crowded. Event in the morning, it's fun. You're just walking around. You'll be able to talk to people. You don't feel too pressured. By the afternoon, it's like, man, you just might as well be fighting people. Right. Every 5 seconds, just a full-out brawl for space.
Yeah, Dragon Con is like that. Golly, Pete, like it's just, you're just elbowing through the crowd or like kind of just mincing your way along. It's madness.
Well, I think we've talked about it before in terms of how I'd like to participate in a con would be behind a table selling books or whatnot.
Yeah.
Exactly how I met you.
Exactly. Yeah. So how would you compare Comic-Con to BookCon, since, that's where we met and you went to Comic-Con just recently?
There's no comparison to the two.
Yeah.
You have BookCon, which is very kind of strolling friendly. I mean, you can talk to every single person there, and the people are kind of looking forward to you talking to them.
Yeah.
But at Comic-Con, there are some gigantic booths, and they really take up a lot of the attention. So even if you're a smaller booth, you're losing attention to the bigger booths. So you could be completely bored standing there in this crowd of people trying to get to the autograph section of the booth right next to you, blocking path. I mean, you see people just annoyed all the time in terms of the booth guys. It's hard to have a conversation. Yeah, it is, because you get into a conversation with somebody, and that person who's with a big publisher or whatnot has already 5 or 6 people around them trying to have a conversation too. I was like, oh man, this is horrible. And I felt compelled to buy. Like really pressured. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to have a conversation just to buy something. But at the same time, I feel bad that you really, really want me to buy something to make this trip be worth it for you.
I have had to get over that since I do a lot of events with other authors. And I mean, I want to support other authors, but like I can't be buying thousands of books every day.
Right? It's impossible. It's really tough
to get over that. So, and sometimes I feel bad saying this, but like, sometimes someone's book doesn't sound interesting to me, and that's no offense to them. It's just sometimes a book isn't your cup of tea, and I feel bad about that. But sometimes it's just, nah, that doesn't really sound like my thing. But like, I don't never want to say that. So I sort of just like slide to a different subject.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there'll even be a subject that I'm really interested in. I just don't want to drop the money on it. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's really tough. And then you do, and you get burned. I mean, we're playing around with the indie publishing world, and you buy something that just sounds so good, and then you pick it up, and it's like, oh God, dude, I would have had a really big field day with you in a creative writing workshop. This is not good. This is very disappointing. But the premise is very interesting, right? I mean, it's like, oh, great premise, horrible execution, and now I feel bad that I spent $15 on this thing.
Do you know, I just had a conversation with my husband about this recently because we watched a film, what was it? It was Late Night with Mindy Kaling and Emma Thompson.
Oh, okay.
And
saw that.
There were a lot of things he didn't like about it.
It's a horrible movie. Did you like it?
I really liked it. And I liked it. Yeah, I liked it a lot. And
but it was sweet, right?
I think it was very sweet. And some of his issues were more technical. Like he felt like it wasn't that realistic, which I will agree with. Like, and it's one of those things where when it comes to entertainment, especially when you have a time frame, like I think she had like a couple of months to get her act together in order to save the show. Like you've got maybe 3 months or something like that. And so like things do have to happen very quickly. So I can kind of forgive stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's even better though. Sometimes you're going into it with the idea that this already is going to break reality. And in a visual medium, you can really forgive a lot of stuff as well. But if you're reading something, you have to give so much of yourself for the actual act to be completed, unless you're doing it for critical reasons. Unless you really want to tear the person apart and kind of look at what they're doing and why they did it and try to avoid it for yourself, that gets painful. That gets my dog.
That's a really interesting thing you bring up of like, okay, when we're doing reviews, like if we're reviewing a book, because I think we all kind of do that, like either just mentally or on our blogs or whatever, we do reviews. That's really tricky when like you have issues with the book. And I do think there's a difference between being ugly when you do a review and being objective. Like maybe there's a thing that you really didn't like about it, but like you have to understand like your opinion is not the be all end all. And I've been warned away from certain platforms because of that, because people have said the reviewers on this platform are just mean. They're not trying to be objective. They're just mean.
What platforms are those? Because I actually have one in mind. Zoetrope is notoriously awful.
I don't know anything about Zoetrope. I'm talking about, what is it? NetGalley. I've heard that the reviewers on NetGalley they're just mean.
NetGalley, I've never heard of.
I don't think we should be mean to each other. I don't think people should be mean in general, but that's just me.
I had a guy on Zoetrope just recently ask if I was new to writing, and if not, maybe I should consider giving it up. And I was like, holy goddamn shit.
You never say give up.
Oh, man, that was horrible.
That is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like, and actually Anne Lamott talks about this in her book Bird by Bird, where she teaches writing classes. And there was a guy who had a piece that was just not really up to snuff, we'll say. She didn't really go into details as to like what the issues were, but one of the people in her class was like, it, kind of toward a new one and stuff. And Anne Lamott looked at this person and said, well, do you think he should give up? And then she addresses that in the book as to like, we're not trying to tear each other down. Like, if there's stuff you don't like, then talk about how it can be improved rather than be like, give up.
It's tough, isn't it? Because you have a situation where when you're starting something, the growing pains can be quite painful. Because you really should be hearing that there are certain things in the writing that are distracting from the story that you're trying to tell, and a reader will never get past that stuff, ever. Mm-hmm. Unless you fix it and address it. You know what I mean? And that comes across to somebody who's really putting effort into an art form as painful. You don't want to hear it. Dad, I don't care about the contractions. What about the story? Oh, I don't care about the misspellings. Tell me about the character. I mean, every new writer kind of goes through that, I hope. Sometimes at 13, sometimes at 21, right?
And not even new writers. I've been struggling with a story that I'm working on, and it's kind of a high concept. And basically the crux of it is that the characters are not human, and that has been the hardest thing for me to get over. I have revised this thing so many times. I've like put it through my critique group multiple times to see if it like gets better with each pass, which it has gotten better with each pass. And basically it takes like, I just have to say up front, not humans, but like, in like a better worded kind of way.
It's interesting that you say like, passing. Rewriting is where I'm stuck right now. I'm not stuck.
Yeah.
I just feel like I have so much material and I want it to be better than it is. So I want to rewrite it. I want it to be as polished as humanly possible, and I agonize. Currently working on something, and I'm like just on the first 2 or 3 pages. Is adding a scene is taking me weeks.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. We're like, how do you know when it's ready? Like, how do you know when you're like done? Which, of course, it's never really like it's never going to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of done.
I have an answer to that now. When I can continue reading it without stopping to add or subtract a word or add a sentence or whatnot.
When I can get to that point,
sometimes I just say it's done. I'm almost at that point. I just want there's like these flavorings. Do you draw? You're a visual artist also, right?
Oh no! I cannot draw to save my life. I do. I make candles and I crochet.
Well, there's a thing, right, where I do drawing and you never really feel like you're done. And when you're on paper and using pen and pencil, you're just adding and messing things up and smudging it and ruining it. Mm-hmm. But in the electronic world, you can get real small and you can delete mistakes and you can fine tune. And I kind of feel like that's how fiction works too, where you just get in there and constantly look for ways to improve something, right? Mm-hmm. But that's a good point. Go
ahead.
When do you know when you're done, right? That's basically at the end of the day is what we were talking about earlier, and how exhausted at the end of the day are you with the story, and how much do you want to move on? Because there's so much that you have to work on. You have to be done eventually, right?
Yeah. There's a podcast I really like called Productivity Alchemy, and they talk about this, and that's actually where I got that quote that perfect is the enemy of done. The host, Kevin, says that a lot.
What?
That perfect is the enemy of done.
Perfect is the enemy of done. No, there's no such thing as perfect, and there's no such thing as done either, right? And the only thing that we talked about this before too. Unfortunately, this is a cliche. The only thing about being done is what death. Unless you're Brandon Sanderson, then he'll probably get hired to finish everybody's series, and you'll be good to go.
This is one of my. This is a new record for us. How quickly can we get to the subject of death? I think it's a new record for us.
Well, 5 minutes in. Is it 5 minutes? Let's see. Hold on a second. When do we start this thing? Well, if I could walk back into my office, Craig would tell me when we started the conversation.
Yeah,
5 minutes. Right. But no, unless you have kids, right? Unless you leave a messy relationship with your children and they don't understand who you were as a person, maybe your fiction will live on. God, Jim Henson's son, Brian Henson, still runs Jim Henson Studios. Mm-hmm. That's interesting, right? He's we started him at 10:10 or something started at 10:10, 15 minutes. That's not too bad. And Jim Henson died of pneumonia. So Brian Henson took over that work, and he's does stuff for Farscape and the Sesame Street or whatever the hell. He
Mm-hmm.
never really has his own stuff. Even when he was a kid growing up, he was a Hoggart in the labyrinth. I mean, he was always working within his father's shadow. Is he his own person? Is Henson the thing that is Brian Henson, or is it always going to be Jim Henson? Is Jim Henson ever going to die? Is work going to continue forever like Shakespeare?
I think we always bring our own flavor because since we are individuals to things. So I think Brian Henson, like, he brings his own flavor to it. Because what is it? The Dark Crystal is
Yeah.
out, and I mean, Jim Henson stuff was kind of dark when we were
Yeah.
kids, but now, oh my gosh, the new Dark Crystal is so dark, and I feel like,
Is it?
you know,
Can I? Is it?
oh
Is there
gosh,
something wrong with
it's
me that?
real dark.
Is there something wrong with me that I can't get into it?
No, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just, personal preference.
I can't. I've tried
And that's
so
the thing
many
is, like,
times.
I'm never, even with my own books, I'm never gonna like fault somebody if they're like, it's not for me. That's cool because everyone's just different. They have different likes and stuff.
I mean, it's interesting as an author who's out there getting published. You can't even really call your shots, can you? In terms of who's going to find you and why they're going to find you and why they're going to enjoy you and why they're going to suggest that other people read you.
Not really. I mean, even when I'm at events doing hand selling and I'm talking to people face to face, I can never fully control that situation. Like, in the end, they're going to make whatever decision they're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they read the book, they're going
And
to
that
have whatever
they're going to base it on
opinion they
you. In the
have.
personal, in the face to face, they're going to base it on you. Am I going to like this person enough to buy their stuff? Interact with them on the internet, which is becoming such a huge thing.
Yeah, it really is, which is hard to keep up with all the other things.
Twitter is, I mean, I don't know. You hear about Facebook lying about the numbers or whatnot, and
Facebook
creators.
is terrible.
But are they the only ones though? I feel like YouTube has been kind of awful, and Twitter has been kind of awful. And that things should be more, and they're not. Like, who's getting pushed to the front? Like, are tweets getting sent in multiple times for certain people? I don't know. It's interesting, right? You don't know these answers. You question it.
Yeah, no, because algorithms are they're such a strange thing on their own since it's machines doing whatever machines think is best. Algorithms are built to perform certain functions, but then the algorithms learn. For instance, if you have, I don't know, a sudden spike in likes and comments and things like that, that tells the algorithm, oh, this person's content should maybe be bumped up a little bit, and then it learns in that way. So yeah, like that's such a sticky wicket. And the thing is, like, I think all companies, they're all trying to make money. Like, that is their number one goal, which in a way I can't really fault them for that because I think that's what we're all trying to do. But at the same time, like, some of the practices are super shady. Like, we know about Facebook's practices, we know they're really shady. Are Google's practices with YouTube as shady or like slightly less shady? Don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
At one time, that was a profitable career for people to be in, and now it's not so much anymore.
I think that's part of the glut, though, because there are so many people trying to do it now.
I guess people are still making a living.
Same with being an indie author. I mean, there are just everyone is publishing now, so there's just way more.
No, that's a very good point. We are in the time of let's give it a shot, and some people are giving it a shot who maybe shouldn't.
And that goes back to what we were talking about, is like, how do you, like, can we determine when it comes to art, since it is art, who should and should not be putting stuff out? I mean, there are things that I've read and I'm like, I don't think this was at a level that should have been published. But some people may feel that way about me. Who knows? Because without, as indie authors, without that, the publisher backing, so to speak, like, there's no like big authority behind us saying, yes, this person is ready. Like, we're all just kind of taking.
Well, there is, right? That's that scratch that you try to find it, and that itch you try to find a scratch for with a good book. You know what I mean? That's what ultimately is going to decide your fate at the end of the day. Are you being able to scratch that itch? And you can shove your stuff down people's throat as much as you want. If you don't do that, it's not going to catch on.
I don't agree. I think this is a race that's won by inches. I don't like, I always think that you should always leave people with a positive impression of yourself. And I'm a very not pushy salesperson. Like, when I do events and stuff, like, I have my cards up telling them what the books are about. I let them know I'm the author. If they have any questions, let me know. And then I sit there and I let them browse. Like, I don't really try to sell. And that seems to work for me because I don't
think
ever
I
want to
would
be
disagree
that
that you do
salesperson.
sell though, because you're very, when you look at you, you smile, you're friendly, right? That's a
Well,
big
I'm
part of
usually
it.
just friendly anyway. That just
Your
comes
booth
with the
is
whole package.
interesting. You got a lot
Thank
of
you.
cool stuff in there. What's going on in there? I want to find out. There's a lot
Mhm.
happening. I don't even think I saw you first off. I think I saw your husband, but both of you
Yeah, because I was
smiling
in
and
the
around to
corner stuffing
people.
my face.
I think there's a system that you should implement at a con. You should make eye contact with people. You should smile and look open. You should be jocular and look for ways to, lighten the air, because there's a heavy mood when somebody moves past the booth because there's an expectation you're going to get tackled by somebody. The
Right. And
point is
actually,
to get attention.
we had once talked about doing a show focused on live shows and strategy and stuff like that. Do you want to like dig into that?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So, yeah, I totally agree with you that like whenever you are doing any kind of event, and even for your social media as well, like I think it should be inviting. I think you should create an environment that is welcoming for people. Um, and I try to do that. I personally just really like, for instance, fairy lights. I have fairy lights in my booth. Like, I try to make it really warm and inviting. And I would love to actually have chairs, but I know that if I had chairs for people to sit and read, like people would just spend all day there. So I don't do that. But that is the sort of vibe that I'm going for, where people feel comfortable to just come and hang out.
And there's no table separating you from the people. Just an
Depending on
open
the
booth.
event. Some events, all I have is a table, and so I do have the table between me and the people. But if I have like a booth, no, usually I don't. It kind of depends on what the kind of space I've been given.
What's most interesting for
Um,
you, like as a person walking around a con? What is interesting? What do you find compelling? Draws your
that's a really good question. I mean, usually if something is different, I'm usually drawn to it. For instance, a friend of mine, Kayan Salustro, she writes space opera, and one of the things that she has in her booth, I met her at BookCon actually too. She makes these little plush animals of these things called Arkans, which are a creature in her book. They're kind of like a blend of like a cat and a dragon, but in space. And they're really cool. So she had her like little plushy Arkin. So of course I'm like, what is this? I'm going to go look at it. Yeah. So I think anything that looks different and interesting is like kind of what attracts me to a booth.
For me, it's the person. Really, honestly, the first thing I look at. Are they going to interact?
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, is a concept too. Is this going to be somewhat interesting? What does this look like? It is. And can I get the other person to talk? I think I'm really interested in how people interact. I mean,
Yeah, I think
like, that's what I'm curious about. More than I'm curious about the book, because I'm really honestly not going to buy it unless it has a really killer idea. Like, I bought a whole series of books where Shakespeare is a wizard just because there was Shakespeare.
Cool.
Right? I couldn't help it. I was like, okay, here's my money.
Great.
You just stop wherever you want to stop and give me the books now. That's basically what happened there. But I try to make eye contact, right? Are you going to talk to me? Are you going to address me in some way? Are you going to make me feel welcome? And then are you going to do it at the booth itself? Probably not, because I'm going to get uncomfortable if there's not anything there for me to look at that looks free that I could take home with me and not have to spend money on.
I think it helps a lot if you can make somebody ask a question like, oh, what is this, for instance, which is why on social media, like we all do, a lot of us do like questions of the day. Like we'll just ask a question in our post, whether it's like, do you like bananas, or, what's your favorite book, or, what tropes do you like in books, whatever it is. Like those sorts of things where you make somebody, or like you draw somebody in to interact. That's a really good way to kind of draw people in without being like, grabbing them off the street or whatever.
Social media is interesting because it doesn't work for everybody.
True. That is very true.
I don't know why it works for some people and not others, but it seems like there is a huge difference between successful in terms of getting some likes and whatnot on each of your posts to a desert of nothing.
Can I be honest with you?
Sure.
So Instagram is getting rid of likes, and I'm totally fine with that. Because honestly, I don't think likes actually mean anything. Like you've had interaction, but you've seen how people like, and I do the same thing, like where you kind of scroll through and you just like all the way down, and you're not really looking at what you're seeing. Like you're just like kind of, I'm acknowledging that I've seen this thing. So I don't think likes really matter, to be honest. And I'm glad that Instagram is getting rid of them.
How do you know? Do you have like a traffic indicator of how many people have looked at your thing, or is that what you're most concerned about? Is the actual traffic itself, or does that you just post a picture and say, whatever happens, I don't care?
I mean, I do have a way because I have my Instagram is a business account. And so it does provide me statistics, but honestly, like I never look at it. Maybe I should like strategize or whatever. But no, like what you said, where I'll just put something up is really how I roll. Like I just want to basically Pinkie Pie for My Little Pony is my spirit animal, and I just want to hang out and be friends with people, which is also my attitude when I do shows. Like I just want to hang out and be friends with people, and we can talk about my books. And if you like them, cool. And if not, then at least maybe we've made a connection. And maybe they'll buy books next time, or maybe they'll go online and buy them. Who knows?
My least favorite subject to talk about is my own writing. Mm-hmm. I don't want to talk about it with anybody, honestly, especially other writers. I feel like there's just so much competition, like not in terms of the challenge of creating, but the terms of go read my books. Because I feel like you're just going to get awfulness from a fellow writer more than you're going to get, oh, that's awesome, I can't wait to read more. You're looking for reasons to hate it because you want to be the best author in your own right.
I really think that marketing, because let's be honest, that's what this is really about building relationships. And a lot of the marketing advice I've read has said the same thing, that it's really about building relationships. So maybe that person doesn't buy your book the first time you meet them, but then you go back to that event the next year and they remember you for whatever reason. And then maybe they buy it that next year. And people probably really disagree with me because I have such a laid back kind of like, c'est la vie attitude about selling. But I really do think it's about building relationships before anything else.
Yeah, but you don't push the book though, do you? What do you push when they're in your booth? You want them to leave with something, just not a smile and a friendly handshake or whatnot, but you want them to go home with something to make them feel like the trip was valuable, right? You want to, because I mean, you're gonna push a book. You're gonna say, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. The guy might buy your book, and he gets home, he's gonna look at that book and go, oh my God, why did I buy this book? I don't ever want to talk or look at this guy again. If they even flip over the cover.
When somebody comes into my booth, when I'm doing an event or whatever, like I said, they come in, I'll be like, hi, welcome. If you have any, I'm the author, and I also make all the candles, which all smell really nice. I do want them to smell my candles because they do smell lovely.
But you don't sell them.
I'll tell them.
Do you sell them? Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, it's a thing that I've started doing since you and I saw each other.
How much is a candle?
It's $10.
$10. And what kind of
$10? Yeah.
What kind of flavors do you have?
I mean, I've themed them after my characters. So, for instance, the candle is leather and whiskey.
That's awesome.
Lenore is vanilla and lavender.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really a great idea. Do you don't have art on them? Do you have just calligraphy, or is there art, character art, like those Jesus candles you can get in Los Angeles? Do you have like?
No, they're not like that. They do have labels on them, and then basically I just have, the same background pattern as what's on the book covers, same font, letting you know what the candle is and what the scent is, with my little broken gear symbol, which is, the official symbol of the series, which, side note, I got as a tattoo yesterday, which is very exciting.
Badass. Where'd you get it?
It's on my arm.
Which part of your arm?
So
a shoulder? Is it up on top or the forearm? You got all the way in your forearm? Is that your first? Like that's your first one?
Oh gosh, no, I have 3 others.
So that's a brave spot to put a tattoo for, like, first out of the gate, right? I mean, like the first one's on the shoulder, I think. Or like girls like to get the tramp stamp. Yeah. So awesome. Good for you. How much did it? I do have one. I'm so sorry.
I do have my first one is actually like in the middle of my back, not middle, between my shoulder blades. So, which at the time I worked corporate, you weren't allowed to have tattoos that showed. So between my shoulder blades worked really well, since that's usually covered up by, like a cardigan or whatever.
I got a one on my forearm like months before I left the army. That's been nothing but
I
agita
was
my
thinking
entire
about
life.
you, and if you had a tattoo, and I was thinking it would be an armed forces tattoo.
Well, I got 2 of them in the army and 2 of them out of the army. I'd like
Very
to get
cool.
more. They're really addictive. And
It's true.
they say that you get bored with them, but honestly, I love all my work. Just having them there makes me feel good. So they're all memories, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Are the 2 that you got while you were in the army? Are they armed forces related? Something totally different.
They're different. There's a Joker on
Okay.
my shoulder with there's an Ace of Spades on my shoulder with a Joker popping through it. Got that one after basic training. A dragon on my forearm, which was, right when I was leaving the military for specific reasons.
Right.
And then the one on my calf is a bat for information that came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And then I have my family symbolized on my other arm with hearts.
Oh, that's really sweet. I love it.
I think I have like 7 tattoos, I guess.
Nice. But yeah, so sorry, going back to the booth. When somebody comes in, obviously I would love for them to buy something. But I also, like I said, more than anything, I want to leave them with a good impression of me. Because again, you never know like who's going to come back, especially because a lot of times when you do live events, they'll just sort of do a circuit first and they'll just look at everything first and then they'll make decisions about what they're going to buy. So again, I think first and foremost, I want to leave people with a good impression of having met me. So, like I said, I'll let them know I'm the author, I'm the candle maker, candles all smell really nice. Do let me know if you have any questions. And, if it feels like, and then you do kind of have to like develop a skill of like kind of feeling out someone's personality. So I might also say to them, like, if there's been a little bit of silence, how are you enjoying the con or the festival or whatever? And then if they're a little bit reticent, I might just leave them to look. But if it feels like they are a bit chatty, I might then follow up with like, what's been your favorite thing or whatever. So I do kind of feel out their personality and see, maybe there's somebody who just wants to be left alone to browse, and that's okay. And so I try to be sensitive to that and then, choose my path. And if they buy something cool, I thank them for coming in. And if they don't, I also thank them for coming in.
How would you rate your booth game on a scale from 1 to 10? Do you think it's the best it can be, or do you think you're working on it still? There's a lot of room for improvement.
What a good question.
Being 1, like the spectrum 1 through 10, worst, best.
I mean, we were saying there's no such thing as perfect, so it's definitely not a 10. But I would say,
is there a 10 in your mind? I mean, what would you be achieving with a 10? Selling every single person or getting emails from a lot of people? I mean, that would be the game changer, wouldn't it? Hundreds of emails per con. It's like worth hundreds of dollars, isn't it?
I apologize. It depends on the con. Like I've done some where I only paid like $75. I've done 1 or 2 where I didn't have to pay anything. And then I've done some where the booth was several $100s. It just depends on the event. But I actually think it's unrealistic to expect every single person who comes in to buy something. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think if I would, let's see, I think a 10 in my mind would be everything is as welcoming and warm and well laid out as possible. And again, because every event has like a different space, like sometimes I just have the table, sometimes I have a 10 by 10 booth. I do a couple of events where I don't even have that. I share with a bunch of authors because I'm a member of this group here in Nashville. And there might be like 10 of us at a table and we all have stuff on the table. So that's a very different setup. I would say basically like a 10 would be just everything is as welcoming and perfect and warm as possible, but it's never going to be perfect.
Warm for me would be interesting, right? I think that's where
like welcoming.
Well, there's something there, something sticky that makes you think of it over and over again. Damn it, I should have eaten that donut.
I have melted caramel everywhere.
But damn it, I can't get rid of this. It's all over the place. I need to go back there right now.
That's definitely not what I mean when I say warm.
No, I understand. I mean, yeah, you want it to stick though, don't you? You really want to be viscous. You wanted to kind of hang out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
The podcast was an excuse to talk to people, and
Mm-hmm.
the people that I talked to did stick because I had specifically mentioned that thing. But
Mm-hmm.
it's an awful thing to really mention because you're really asking them to be willing to say yes in a moment where they're probably willing to say yes to anything.
Maybe. I mean,
You know what I mean? Because
and
they
the
want
thing
you to be
is,
friendly. They
oh,
want you to
absolutely.
like them, remember you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think podcasts are really similar to the booth experience or, the social media experience where you are basically presenting yourself in some form. In this way, in this form it's audio. In social media it's more visual and, through captions. In a booth it's visual and in person. But yeah, you're presenting yourself in a certain way, and if you come off like a jerk, people will notice.
No, that's the problem. Is I come off how I come off every single episode or show. Like, damn it, I can't do anything about me.
I don't think you're a jerk though. You're definitely not a jerk.
Certain people might argue with you. It all
Well, yeah,
depends on the
people
moment.
have different perspectives, but
Right.
but
All
I know how
depends
you
on the
feel.
moment. All
I
depends. Oh
get
my
that.
God, man. I live in
No,
a
I think
city where
you're
people want me to be a jerk. So I swear to
that is
God, man, I'm
true.
the R train just pulled up into my subway station, the one right down the street. Just
Mhm.
pulled up. I could have gotten on it, but this asshole is leaving the subway and going through the turnstile at the same time. No, we hit the
Mhm.
thing at the same. He could have backed up and said, "Here you go, buddy. Enjoy your day on this R train." And he did not. He pushed through, and he made me miss that train.
Mm.
I wanted to murder him, and I'd already walked the turnstile, thinking that I was going to get on the train, even though I was already mad. I missed it by inches, and the driver said, "Ha ha ha!" I
Mhm.
could hear him laughing as they pulled away.
Yeah. That is hard. I was in Germany the other month, and
Oh yeah,
you gotta be
Germany.
fast. You gotta be real fast in Germany. Like, well, on the trains that they have, like, you gotta, like, jump off. You can't, like, take your time. You gotta be ready, and you have to jump.
Where did
So,
you
yeah,
go
'cause
in
I
Germany? You said Berlin. You went to Berlin. You
no,
said.
I was in Bavaria, so the southern part of
Oh,
Germany.
okay.
Yeah, which was very, very cool. It
I
was
think I lived in
gorgeous.
Bavaria for a little while. Off the Rhine. I think that's Bavaria. Maybe that's not Bavaria. Maybe it's Rhineland.
I am the worst with geography.
I love
I
Germany.
don't.
Love it.
It is gorgeous. I saw the Danube, that river. So we were all around there.
Okay. I'm not familiar with it. I was a very young child when we were there. I have not been back since.
Oh, okay.
Someday
So
I'd like to change
how
that.
young is a very young?
9.
Hmm.
Is that a long time ago? My God, that's 34 years ago.
Yeah.
I was 9 years old.
So was that during the whole Berlin Wall thing? Was that before or
It's
after?
before. Before.
Oh, snap. So that's kind of crazy.
That
It's
was in the
weird to
army.
think that was in our lifetime.
My dad used to. He was a nuclear missile launcher for the
Oh,
army.
snap. Hmm.
He tells me that there are secrets that he cannot tell me involving those
That's
missiles,
understandable.
which is
Yeah.
incredibly interesting. He can't tell his son
Anybody who does
anything. Well,
any
I guess.
work with. Go ahead.
No, it was just interesting that he's had nuclear weapon experience. I was there when Chernobyl went up in '86,
Oh, snap. Oh, wow. What was
and
that like?
I didn't know anything happened really, honestly, until like years
Mhm.
later. It was in the history books. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, I might have lived through that.
I was
But
there for
then,
that.
yes, I was close. I was right there. No, it's interesting, right? I mean, I wish I'd been there when the wall went down. I wish I'd seen the
Yeah.
wall.
Hmm. Although, like from what I understand, it was a pretty not nice place. So maybe be glad that you didn't see it.
East Germany. I mean, can you imagine Berlin just being separated like that? There are pictures now where one side is just this dingy gray still, and the other side's vibrant and alive.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh.
Um,
What did you do
yeah,
in
that's the way
Germany?
I'm
Just
finding
having a
it.
good time?
Yeah, so a friend of mine, she lives there. She's also an editor. Her company is called Wrapped Up Writing, in case anybody is interested in an editor. But yeah, a friend of mine, she lives there, and so we went and stayed with her and her boyfriend, and got to see all kinds of cool things. Like I've never been to Germany, so they took us around. We were in what's the place called? Regensburg is where we mainly stayed, but we also went to um, what was the name of that place? Oh gosh, it's totally leaving. Oh, Beirut is the name of it. So we went there, went to a wine festival. We went to Salzburg in Austria, which was pretty cool. So like that day was actually really fun because we started the day in Salzburg, Austria. We went back to Germany and spent a little time in Munich. And then my husband and I hopped over to London at the end of the day. So we were in 3 countries in one day, which was pretty cool.
That is pretty neat. Did you fly out? Did you fly out from? I've never been to London. I'd like to go to London.
We stayed with my friend, another friend of mine, while we flew into London, and she lives in the Midlands, like near the Cotswolds. So we stayed with her. We stayed with her mom, who lives a little bit south of there, and whatnot. So I spent probably, I think, another 7 days or so. Mike was there another 4 days. So we flew back separately. My husband Mike flew back first, and then I stayed a couple of extra days, and we did things that he would not find interesting at all. Like we went to Jane Austen's house. We went to the theater in London, which, like I said, he would not have found those things interesting. So it worked out. But yeah, so we went, distillery tour. Oh my gosh. The distillery tour was kind of amazing just because like you get this really great tour and then they get you a little bit liquored up because you get to do like a tasting in the tasting room, which is very cozy with armchairs and all kinds of nice soft things. And you get to taste whatever you want. And then when you're just a little bit liquored up, they're like, by the way, we have a gift shop. so yeah, you're feeling really happy and you're like, oh, gift shop. That's
Here's
great.
my credit card.
Yeah, we spent a good bit of money on liquor.
I was worried now.
It was a good time.
You dig deep into it. You're like, am I really getting the quality that I want? That's what happened with wine, right? There's just so much good wine out there that I'll never be able to afford to taste. And it haunts you. It's like, what am I drinking? Is this swill or is it actually good wine? I want to try the best.
If you enjoy
Give me a taste of the best.
Isn't that what matters?
I don't like being hungover. I hate being hungover. I hate it so much. I maybe drink too much. Like, it's great in the beginning. Like, I'm feeling pretty good. And then you drink a little bit more and then eventually throw up.
I'm going to tell you something you're not going to like, Brian.
What?
I don't get hangovers at all. Like, I've never had a hangover, even though I've been very drunk. Makes my husband so annoyed. He's like, it's really irritating. I just don't get hungover.
Oh my God. I drank like 6 beers once and woke up the next morning and thought I was going to die.
Oh gosh.
Just 6 regular beers that you buy in a convenience store. Like, I thought I was going to die the next day. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm not drinking anymore. There's no point to this. I hate it so much. I don't really even drink.
Yeah. And that's understandable.
But I'm so curious about it, though. I mean, there are some whiskeys out there that are so expensive that just to look at the barrel will put you in a bankruptcy the rest of your life. You know, I mean, how does that stuff taste? We'll never taste it. We'll never have it. Maybe you will. You know, you're going in the right direction. I'm just staying flat. So if I continue doing what I'm doing right now, I will never taste that wine or that whiskey.
I mean, I do think, though, that it's one of those things where there are plenty of affordable, really good ones. Like, I don't really drink whiskey so much. I'm more of a gin drinker. It's my husband who's the whiskey drinker.
Oh, okay.
But there are so many good ones that are affordable, and that's okay. Like, you don't like. I mean, I understand FOMO is like a legit thing, but you know, like what's that really, really, really crazy expensive whiskey? The Old
Grandpappy. Is that what?
That's the one.
God Almighty! That's why I decided to quit, because it's like I want to try this so bad, and I'm never going to. I mean, I'm never going to spend $50 for a dram or whatever the hell they serve it as.
Yeah, you can't get it. It's so.
I'm not going to do it. So why bother? I mean, there's really good whiskeys too. I really enjoyed the experience of having.
There's some really lovely ones.
Exploring that, right? As a writer, just like such a great. Like, why is this good? What am I tasting? How can I describe this? Works for characterization. I mean, food and drink just are perfect for that stuff. I hate being drunk. I hate it so much. I just hate it so much. So none of my characters actually imbibe because I just don't want to experience it myself.
And you know, that's a really good point, is that, you know, characters, just like real people, they're all different. They all have their distinct likes and dislikes. Because my characters also imbibe. And they all have their favorite drinks and things they like and things they don't, and they, you know, have talked about it occasionally right before somebody got murdered, but that's beside the point. So yeah. I am not a gin drinker. I do not enjoy it at all. I don't think it has a great taste. I'm a vodka guy. I love it.
Why? Do you think there's something broken inside? No, I'm joking.
That is hilarious.
Cilantro does that to some people too, right? It has that soapy taste. I can't even imagine not loving
exactly.
cilantro. Like, I think cilantro is an amazing, amazing herb, and if I put it in food for my wife's cousin, girlfriend, she will throw up. She just can't
Yeah.
stand the taste of cilantro. I'm like, why is this green? It's bright green color.
I feel the same. I love it, but some people like
Can't do it.
they can't stand it.
That's how I feel about gin. It's just like, I don't know what it is about gin. It just has this awful taste to it. Scotch is like that too. I don't like the peatiness. I try to force my way through it.
Interesting.
Don't like the peatiness. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
I think it depends on which one you have. Like, I generally don't like beers. I'll try any beer, and I've tried a lot, and 99% of the time I haven't liked it. Apparently there's a type, my brother-in-law is very into beers, and so he did this whole explanation for me, but unfortunately I don't remember most of it. But sours, which are usually like more fruity, I do tend to like those. So there's that, but like most others, well, no, I'm like
stuff that tastes like grapefruit.
Yeah.
You like that
I
stuff?
can dig it. I've had a peach one. I've had one that was, I think it was like some kind of berry, like maybe raspberry or something. And I've had one that was a bit appley. But yeah, other than that, like, I've tried Guinness, and Guinness is awful.
Guinness is an acquired taste. I got drunk on Guinness in Denver, and I could never do it again. It's like getting drunk on bread. I got on a Greyhound bus like right afterwards. Like, this is gonna be the greatest
Oh no, that sounds really horrible.
Yeah, that's what you get when you're 21 years old. You make stupid decisions like that. Let's drink Guinness and get on a Greyhound.
Oh gosh.
Don't drink Guinness and get on a Greyhound. Go on a Greyhound with a cup of coffee and try to not sleep until you're supposed to go to sleep, because it's a miserable experience.
Yeah,
that was bad.
I have had wine. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, wine.
I was gonna say, I have had wine at an event. Getting back to events and stuff. One of the other authors was like wandering around, and it was a pretty slow event. So it was mostly just us authors hanging out in there. And she's like wandering around with a wine glass, and I was like, "What is that?" And she's like, "It's wine." And I was like, "Oh, okay," because I just assumed there's no way she'd have alcohol. Oh yeah, she did. And then she's like, "Do you want some?" And I'm like, "Well, of course." So yeah, just random story.
How much in trouble would both of you get for having wine at a convention? Would it matter?
I don't know. I mean, we weren't outside, which, I mean, most states have laws about having alcohol outside. I really don't know. It was in a hotel, and hotels are funny like that. So
hotels, you're allowed to have alcohol, and they have bars and stuff. It's interesting.
A lot of them, yeah, you can like take it from the bar up to your room. So yeah, they're kind of a weird middle ground when it comes to stuff like that.
From your neck of the woods, Nashville area, I heard that a lot of those dry counties that you can't buy liquor in, that was facilitated by moonshiners so they can continue to sell their hooch.
It might be, although there are definitely loopholes. Like Jack Daniel's distillery is in a dry county, but you can buy the bottles as what do they call them? I think they're like gift sets. Like, they're not legally categorized as liquor; they're categorized as like gifts, so you can still buy it. It's just like some weird loophole that they can use, and you can still buy liquor there. It's funny.
I picture it so well. It's like 3:00 in the morning. I'm coming back from Florida. I have to be in formation in 3 hours, and Jack Daniel's Distillery is being advertised in the sky like a Polaris. Not a good memory because I'm exhausted. I waited until the last possible second to start driving back. I was miserable by the time I'd see that stupid sign. God, I hated Tennessee. Really did not live in it. I did not like Tennessee at all.
I'm very sorry.
No. I lived in Gatlinburg for a little while, though. It helped a lot. So beautiful.
Oh gosh, it's gorgeous.
But my God, the tourists ruined it. Just ruined it. Tourists are the worst.
I mean, Nashville has tourists, but they're mostly limited to Broadway on like Friday and Saturday nights.
I hear your town is getting big in the artistic community.
It is, yeah. I mean, Nashville is growing a lot. It's growing really fast. We have a lot of other industries too, which really help. Like, we have a lot of healthcare. We have a growing technology field. But also, of course, the music has long been big here, and we have, a growing community of artists and things like that. We have a number of art festivals and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely on its way up.
It's interesting that you say festivals. I wonder, we are looking at an economy where every other person is going to produce some kind of art form.
Kind of, yeah.
Where can you make money off them? Or how can you, right? I mean, there are no jobs out there anymore that I could think of. Instead of, like, unless you're working in a field that required a really high-end education to get into, you're probably an artist or a creator of some kind.
Diversification is really helpful when it comes to that. Because I mean, I write my books, going back to shows and stuff, like, but I also make the candles, and the candles do pretty well. And I've taken up crocheting, and so I make fingerless gloves, like dragon scale fingerless gloves, and those have done really well. I sold out the other week, and I haven't been able to replenish my stock yet.
I can't do that stuff, but you're right. Things like that, tangible items that people can buy and say, I like this. That's so cool and niche and geeky, and give me a dozen of those. My wife loves stuff like that. She will sit here. She wants to do more things like that too. I go to cons all the time thinking I want to have something at a con, but I also have the mindset of I want to publish all of these finished works that I have. Well, how done do they have to be? I need to buy an editor. How much does an editor cost? The whole catch-22 is you need the money before you hire the editor and all that good stuff.
Editors are going to be really expensive, but they're also worth their weight in gold. Like,
exactly.
I adore my editor. She does such a good job. And we do 3 rounds. We did developmental line and then proofread. And like, she was like looking at my manuscript so closely. And it's a lot of money. I won't deny that. It's a lot of work, but it's totally worth it.
I'm thinking about going to grad school and having a professor be my editor for 36 hours and, doing it that way.
I mean, you could do.
Right? I mean, it's almost...
I don't know that...
Paying, you get something potentially that'll help you get a job later on down the road, teaching in community colleges or something.
True. That's definitely an option. I can't speak well enough of having a professional editor, though, and that's one of the things I tell new writers too, is like, get a professional editor, especially if a writer's like, oh, I'm just gonna have I'm just gonna not use an editor, or have like a friend of mine look at it. I'm like, no, please have a professional editor.
I think honestly, you need somebody who has kind of that storytelling ability, because if they're just looking at grammar, they might be making suggestions that are hurting the story more than helping it.
Yeah, and like those people, like, my editor is also one of my friends, but when she's editing, she's not focusing on the fact that I'm her friend. She's focusing on what's going to make this story the best it can be.
Yeah,
and I mean, there were some hard conversations that we had.
I bet you weren't friends when you first met either. Like, be my editor, best friend in the world. Or were you?
Well, she was. I was forced to find a new editor. Unfortunately, the editor I had before, unfortunately, was killed in a car accident.
Oh my goodness.
So I had to find a new editor, and I was already friends with Serena.
Dana, you're finishing the conversation by talking about death. So now it's all your fault.
You're right. It's me. It's on me now. It really
is. Probably was you to begin with. You probably brought it up because you're obsessed. How can we not be though, man? It's like all around us. That's horrible.
It's just part of life. And I am not saying that to be glib. I'm saying to get away from the sad subject.
The inevitable. So your editor died in a car accident, so you had to find a new one. We'll get off that subject. For some reason, it's circling around my brain as I'm staring out this window.
So Serena and I, we were already friends when I approached her and said, hey, I need a new editor. I need to find somebody, because also I had a deadline. I had a short story due in a couple of months for an anthology that I was a part of, and so I needed somebody, and it was hard. I wasn't ready. It was really hard. But Serena was lovely and compassionate and everything I needed her to be at the time.
Did she edit the short story or the anthology?
She did. She edited the short story for me, because for this anthology we were all responsible for having our own stuff edited, and then we would send it, and then the anthology would combine it all together. But yeah, so she and I were already friends. But like I said, and that was something I was worried about, because the short story was one thing. I mean, she did a great job, but it's such a smaller piece than the whole novel. I was a little bit worried, but I really didn't have any need to be concerned, because like when it came to the book, which just came out on the 1st of October, she was
congratulations.
She did not. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. She did not like mince words when it came to things. There was an entire chapter that she didn't even bother editing on the first pass because she's like, I really think you need to write this from a different character's perspective. I think that this other character has a much deeper emotional stake. And like, let me know if you disagree, but I'm not even going to bother editing it until I hear back from you. And she was right. She was totally right. And I had to rewrite the whole chapter. And yeah, it was good. So yeah, like I said, like she is my friend, but also like she is my editor first when she's editing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I just get so tired, right? I just get so exhausted by the time the work is almost done. I just finished a novella, and the thing is just weighing on my mind. I cannot even stand looking at it. In fact, I'm so exhausted I can't even edit this short story that I need to finish.
Yeah, creative energy is a finite resource. I think people don't really realize that like you can't just produce like endlessly. Like mental
vacuum
energy,
too.
energy, all of these
You
are
need
finite
somebody.
resources.
You need somebody to say, "This is good. You're going in the right direction. Let's adjust this and get this going. Maybe this will let." You know what I mean? Because personally, I do everything in this vacuum of okay, we're just going to churn. There isn't a lot of feedback saying you need to do it a little bit different because it's falling flat.
Yeah, but you said you're kind of almost to that point where you're thinking about getting a professional editor involved in the process.
Well, I need to make the money first. I'm not going to come up with it, right? I don't know. That's the whole for me right now is doing the actual investing. And plus, the relationship itself is going to stress me out to the point where I don't think I'll actually pull the trigger on anything.
So are you worried that the editor will tell you you've done something wrong or?
No. I mean,
no?
I think that if you read my stuff and you understand where I'm coming from, the work does support itself, right? I mean, it's not horrible if you understand what I'm trying to accomplish. If you don't, then it's really going to upset you because there's a lot of things that aren't working contemporarily. It's not a normal piece of fiction. Potentially, I don't know. But the way I hear it, once you get past that initial road bumpy part, you flow into it and you can't stop reading it. So I don't know. It could just be my mom telling me that. You know what I mean? I have no clue what the truth is. Maybe I am. Maybe we revealed something. Maybe I'm afraid that the editor will tell me no. Bill Wagner was right on Zoetrope. Dude, you've been working way too long to be this bad. Go wait tables.
And I mean, definitely second, third, fourth opinions are really, really good for before you take that big step. Because again, an editor is a huge investment. Like it's a lot of money. Totally worth it, but a lot of money. And so, if you have other sources of feedback, like for instance, I have a writing group that I can take stuff to and be like, hey guys, am I totally off base with this? Or like, what do you guys think? My dad is my first reader, so I can always send something to him and be like, what do you think, Dad? And sometimes not everyone is going to be able to be that person for you. For instance, like, so my editor friend who I hung out with in Germany, she doesn't do sci-fi. She doesn't really do fantasy, maybe a little urban fantasy, but she's mostly contemporary. So like she would not be the right person for me to be like, hey, here's my steampunk fantasy stuff. Like, can you do this for me? Like she's not going to be that right person because that's just not her forte.
Yeah.
So yeah, finding those right people, that team of people is invaluable.
Yeah, it's hard to make that leap too. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people screw up by just dumping their thing on Amazon. Here it is, world, buy it.
Yeah, I think it's vital that you have a professional editor go over it, look at it, work on it with you, and whatnot, so that it can be the best it can be.
Yeah, I mean, we're just about at an hour, but I mean, basically the list is have people that care that you publish a novel lined up well in advance of having the novel ready to be published. Have the novel be word perfect, no errors. I mean, God almighty, first page, have no errors, at least in the first page. And have a gorgeous cover. And those three things, you could probably sell some copies. But without those three things, you're really wasting it.
And that'll help with shows too. Like if you have a nice looking cover, that's going to be something that will draw people in. If you have a cover that is attractive. So yeah. And also, I talked about having a team of people for editing. I also think having a team of people for shows is really, really helpful. For instance, like my booth setup, did not come just from me. Like my older sister is very good with visual media stuff.
Mm.
She helped me develop what is now my booth setup. My husband is really good with that. And so he helped me tweak some things, but even just like where on the table your books are sitting matters. So he's helped me with that, helped me figure out like different configurations and stuff. So like I have a lot of people around me who have been very supportive, and I definitely encourage other readers and writers and stuff to like lean on the people around you, those trusted people who will tell you what they think, even if it might hurt your feelings. Like, you know, there have been times where I've had a setup, especially as I've added new books, like you have to reconfigure. Like, you know, my husband has been, I don't think this looks good. I think it looks cluttered. Why not try X, Y, and Z?
Mm.
So yeah.
It's a work in progress. And that's probably why you love
always,
it.
Always.
If there was
nothing is ever perfect. There's a quote from Pablo Picasso that says, art is never finished, it is merely abandoned. And at some point, like you have to say, all right, I'm abandoning you to, you know, the editor, if it's at that step, or once it's gone through that editing process, the world, or whatever it is.
I've heard that before. I didn't know it was Picasso. I thought it was somebody else.
I mean, maybe it is. Things get misattributed all the time.
But it works. I mean, a project is never done, it's just abandoned. A novel is never done, it's just abandoned. It's like you just give up. That's the question. Mm-hmm. Do you give up now, or do you give up after reading it through 4 or 5 more times and adding another couple thousand words to it?
I would say, I wonder too, if, like, for instance, if we're talking about like abandoning something before it reaches the world, never delete it, ever. Because you might cannibalize that thing. My book, Raven's Cry, started as a historical fantasy until I realized I don't have the chops for historical anything, because I can't do it, because historical takes a whole cavalcade of skills that I don't have.
Like
so
what?
I just put it aside for years and years.
Tell me what skills.
So for historical, like, you have to know about historical events that happen during whatever time frame you're in. You have to know like how the geopolitics around the world interacted with each other, because of course nothing happens in a vacuum. Like stuff that was happening in Spain affected stuff that was happening with England, which affected stuff that was happening in Germany. So yeah, like you have to know all of these things and know how they interacted, and, you know, weave that into your story. And I don't have the chops for that. Like I'm just not that person.
And you just have to make, I mean, you do it anyway for your world building, right? I mean, it's there. It's like an open book test. And you have to look at it like character specific. You can still make it up, because there's like there's 1,000 different perspectives. In fact, if you adjust things just a little bit, you get a whole perspective that wasn't even written. So like Germans from World War I who were displaced in Amsterdam or something, where the hell is their written history at? There is none. They had politics in the little community as well.
There. We just might not know what it
Nobody cares, right? Because nobody's going to look at it. But if you write a compelling enough character set in that world, your historical fiction piece will stand out. Got Jeffrey Archer, right? I think it was Jeffrey Archer writes historical fiction primarily. And he wrote a story about a dude who went to World War I and came back a veteran and crawled his way up in the retail world and owned like a Lords and Taylor type department store at the end. It was a billionaire or some shit. Obviously, none of that happened in history. That was all created based on this one character's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you do the same thing with your steampunk, right? I mean, you have this huge world and you put this little tiny insignificant person in there and make them matter.
Exactly. Yeah, because Raven's Cry, it's a dark retelling of Swan Lake. And so I ended up saving the story, and then, you know, years and years later, I realized, oh, my steampunk world is where this belongs, and so I didn't have to worry about the historical factors in there, since I have my own world and history and stuff. But you know, you do see the history of that world come together in her story, because she does live for several centuries under this curse. So yeah,
awesome. It's good stuff. What's coming up for you? What's going on that we should be aware of?
Like I said, the latest book came out on October 1st. It's called Across the Ice, and it's the
good for you.
Final volume in our main character Lenore's storyline. Raven's Cry, which I mentioned, is a standalone prequel to the world.
Is that on Amazon? Your website?
It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
They're available everywhere you can buy books, in your local.
Wouldn't that be great?
Bookstore.
Walking down the street, you just see people holding it in their hands.
Oh, I reading it voraciously. I hope to see that one day.
J.K. Rowling style, just they're standing in line for it.
Right.
Please just don't sell the damn thing to Warner Brothers for any amount of money. Just they're gonna do a bad job making the movies. Just don't do it.
most books to movies are terrible. So
Really, I mean, just don't do
if
it
I
while
ever
the
got to
series
that
is still
point,
being
I'd be
written.
pretty happy. But
Don't
I'd
ruin
have to
it.
get to that point too.
I don't understand how people like the movies, honestly. Speaking of Harry Potter, do you like the movies versus the books, or are you a book person?
I think they're fine. I much prefer the books. I think the books are way richer. But then again, they're different mediums. Like you can only do so much with a movie, whereas in a book, you can really get down into the world building details.
Yeah, totally with you. So that book is out. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I've got that, and then I'm gonna have to start writing the next one.
The hard part.
Of course, like if you're signed up for my VIP newsletter, you get short stories every other month. So that is continuing, which is always fun.
Oh, you get short stories every other month based in the same world?
Yep, same world.
Do those end up in the novel at one point, or they're completely separate?
They intertwine. So for instance, one of my short stories that I've got available for VIP newsletter subscribers, it looks at when these two characters who work together first met, and you see that interaction. So yeah, they all kind of twist together and intertwine and things like that. So that is available to VIP newsletter subscribers. Patreon subscribers get those in audio format, which I narrate. So there's that. But yeah, just kind of continuing to roll on.
Good for you.
So I don't have much other.
No, that's enough. I mean, God, you could fill a lot of time with what you've got going on. How far into the writing process are you right now with the next book?
I have the beginning so far, and that's kind of it. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing for NaNoWriMo, which of course is coming up next month. Because I could work on the next book, like, do the whole NaNoWriMo thing and get 50,000 words all done up for it. But there are a couple of other projects that I am looking at focusing on as well pretty soon. So I've got to see if a couple more pieces fall into place and work on those and see kind of how it all plays out.
Well, I wish you luck, and I thank you so much for being willing to come on and deal with the technical difficulties.
All awesome. Right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. You have a great one.
You too. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.